The painting that moved it started like any other day. The sun was just beginning to peek through the curtains when Mira stepped into her late grandmother's old art room. Dusty, silent, forgotten. It had been months since anyone had entered, but something about that morning felt different. As she moved through the room, brushing off old memories and faded canvases, one painting caught her eye. It was a portrait she didn't recognize, soft strokes, a faceless figure, and eyes that seemed to follow her.
She paused.
The air shifted. This wasn't just another piece of art. It felt alive. Mira had grown up around paintings. Her grandmother was a respected artist, known for capturing emotions that almost spoke through her work. But this one was never mentioned. There were no records, no signature, and no sign of age. Just a canvas that seemed too fresh, too present. Curiosity turned into obsession as Mira tried to find out where it came from. And then, the painting moved. Not dramatically, not like in movies, but enough. Enough for her to question if she was imagining it. She adjusted it on the wall. Moments later, it was crooked again. She began filming small clips, hoping to catch something on camera. Friends told her she was just tired, maybe grieving. But the painting kept changing. Its background colors darkened one day, lightened the next. Once, the faceless figure seemed to have the faintest outline of lips. She wasn't sure anymore what was real. What made it even more chilling was when her dog, usually playful, refused to enter the room, barking at the wall where the painting hung. Still, Mira couldn't look away. Something was hidden behind those strokes, a story buried beneath layers of paint. And when she finally discovered where the painting came from, everything changed. But that part, I'll let you hear for yourself. Mira couldn't stop thinking about the painting. It was like something inside it had reached out to her, like it had been waiting all these years for someone to notice. That night, long after the house had gone quiet, she found herself back in the art room, sitting cross-legged in front of it, just staring. Every brushstroke felt intentional, every shadow carried weight. But what unsettled her most was the figure, still faceless, still silent, but somehow watching. She started digging through her grandmother's old sketchbooks and journals, hoping for a clue. Her grandmother, Sharda Joshi, had kept meticulous notes for every artwork she ever made. Every canvas had a backstory, every emotion had a reason. But this painting, nothing. It wasn't mentioned even once.
No rough sketch. No idea.
Not even a title. Mira began asking questions. She called her uncle in Pune, her mother's cousin in Delhi. Everyone remembered Sharda painting for hours, but no one remembered this particular piece. Then something strange happened. While flipping through one of the older journals, a photo slipped out. It was black and white, slightly torn, but clearly showed her grandmother standing beside a woman Mira had never seen before. And behind them, resting on an easel, was the painting. Same frame, same haunting colors. But this time, the figure had a face. Mira's heart raced. She scanned the room, looking at the current version of the painting. Still faceless. The deeper she went, the more questions piled up. Who was the woman in the photo? Why had her face been removed from the canvas? Was it a mistake? Or had someone erased her? And that's when Mira noticed the signature on the corner of the photo. It wasn't her grandmother's name. It was someone else's. A name she had never heard before. Lada. Her grandmother had never collaborated with anyone, at least that's what everyone believed. So who was
Lata.
And why had she painted or been painted into a piece that was now trying to change itself? That night, as Mira lay awake, the wind rattled the windows. The painting creaked slightly on the wall, and for the first time, Mira saw something move within the canvas. Not a brushstroke, not the frame, but a flicker. Like someone was breathing from inside. She didn't sleep after that. The next morning, Mira visited the local art college where her grandmother had once studied and later taught. She brought the photo with her, hoping someone might recognize the name Lada. Most of the faculty were new, unfamiliar with names from that era, but an older watchman overheard Mira asking questions. He quietly pulled her aside. He remembered Lada. She was brilliant, he said, eyes narrowing like he was looking into a distant memory. but troubled. Left suddenly. Some say she never really left. The words stuck with Mira. She asked if he knew what kind of art Lotta had created. The man hesitated, then said, "Mostly portraits. But people said they felt off. Like you were being watched. Some even said her paintings changed after dark." Mira didn't know whether to feel relieved or more afraid. Back at home, she started searching through old exhibition records, newspaper archives, anything that might mention our Lotta. The name appeared only a few times, always briefly, always surrounded by vague phrases like unusual methods or artistic dispute. One article mentioned a canceled gallery showing after several guests complained about emotional disturbances. Another hinted that Lotta's final piece had disappeared under mysterious circumstances. Mira's thoughts kept circling back to her grandmother. Why had she kept the painting? Why had she never spoken about Lotta? What had really happened between them? That night, Mira's best friend Arav came over. She showed him the painting and explained everything. He laughed nervously at first, thinking it was just an old canvas with some freaky vibes. But when he touched the frame, he jerked his hand back, swearing it felt warm, like body temperature. That's when they both noticed it. The figure's shoulders had slightly shifted since the day before. It wasn't imagination. Something was changing. Later, Arav confessed something odd. His phone camera had been acting strange since taking a picture of the painting. Photos were coming out distorted, sometimes with shadows or glitched outlines around the figure. One image even showed faint letters written in the background that weren't visible to the naked eye. They enhanced the image. For words slowly became clear. "She's still in there." That was the moment Mira realized this wasn't just a forgotten painting. It was a prison. Mira couldn't ignore it anymore. The painting wasn't just changing, it was responding. Each day brought some new detail. A slight tilt of the faceless head, darker shadows creeping along the background, and most disturbingly, a shape, like a hand, pressing faintly against the inside of the canvas, as if someone trapped behind it was trying to push through. She stopped sleeping properly. The house felt colder, and strange noises filled the nights. Not loud or sudden, just soft whispers and the quiet creak of floorboards where no one walked. Her dog still refused to go near the art room, now growling at the closed door, even during the day. Mira started keeping a journal, trying to document every shift in the painting, every odd sound, every dream she had. Because the dreams had started too. In them, she'd see a room, similar to her grandmother's art studio but older, more decayed. A woman stood in the corner, always with her back turned. Mira would try to speak, to move closer, but she'd wake up just before the woman turned around. Every time, Arav returned with more research. He'd found an old student who had briefly studied under Lotta. The woman was hesitant to talk, but after some convincing, she agreed to meet. What she shared chilled them both. Lotta believed that emotions, especially deep ones like grief, guilt, and anger, could be captured in paint, not just symbolically but literally. That a canvas could hold energy, that if strong enough, it could become alive. She'd once spoken about binding a soul to a brushstroke.
No one took her seriously at the time.
But then she vanished. No explanation. No goodbye. Just gone, along with her final painting. Back at the house, Mira stood in front of the canvas again, staring into the emptiness of the figure's face. She touched the edge carefully. The surface pulsed, just for a moment, like a heartbeat. That night, Arav stayed over. Neither of them wanted to be alone. Around 3 a.m., a loud thud woke them both. They ran to the art room. The painting had fallen face down. When they lifted it, Mira gasped. The faceless figure now had hair, long, black strands that hadn't been there before. And across the bottom, written in red as if smeared from inside the canvas, were 2 words: "Help me." The lights flickered. A gust of wind slammed the studio door shut. Arav turned pale. "We need to destroy it," he whispered. But Mira shook her head. "Not yet. I think there's something she wants me to see." As they stood there, breathless, a shadow moved in the corner of the room. Slowly, deliberately. Not an illusion. not a trick of light. Someone or something was standing there. And then, the painting began to hum. The low hum from the painting grew louder, vibrating through the wooden floor beneath their feet. Mira and Arav stood frozen, their eyes fixed on the canvas, as if it might explode. Then all at once, it stopped. Total silence. The shadow that had moved in the corner was gone. But the room no longer felt empty. Mira didn't speak. Her mind raced, heart pounding in her ears. Arav moved to turn on the lights, but the switch didn't respond. The power was out. They fumbled with their phones, using the flashlight to scan the room. That's when they noticed it. Something had been scratched into the back of the canvas while it lay face down.
A date.
July 21st, 85. Arav immediately checked his phone. That's today's date. But wait, 1985. He looked at Mira, confused. That's exactly 40 years ago. Something clicked in Mira's memory. She rushed to the bookshelf in the hallway and pulled out an old family photo album. Her grandmother had kept everything neatly documented. She flipped through the pages until she found it, a photo dated July 21st, 1985. Her grandmother, standing in the same studio, but in the background, barely visible, stood a second woman. Blurry, expression unreadable, but unmistakably similar to the figure in the painting. Mira stared in disbelief. It's her. She was here. That day. Then Arav noticed something else. There were now faint fingerprints, almost smudges, on the inside of the glass covering the painting, as if someone had been trying to push out. They both stepped back. That night, Mira couldn't stop replaying the date in her head. Why that day? Why 40 years?
Why now?
The next morning brought the twist no one saw coming. While digging through her grandmother's belongings again, Mira found a sealed envelope hidden beneath the lining of an old wooden drawer. Inside was a letter, handwritten, fragile with age. It wasn't addressed to her, but to our Lotta. My dearest Lotta, it began. I did what you asked. I finished your work. I sealed what you couldn't control. I only pray no one ever finds it. The letter wasn't a warning. It was a confession. Mira read on, her hands shaking. Her grandmother had completed the painting after Lotta disappeared. She'd bound whatever remained of Lotta, her soul, her pain, her obsession, inside that canvas, believing it would stay silent. But something had changed. Maybe the passing of time, maybe the energy in the house, maybe Mira herself had triggered it. And then came the final line. If this painting ever wakes, don't let it speak. Don't let her finish the portrait. Finish the portrait? Mira looked back at the painting and gasped. The figure's hand was now raised, holding a brush. It hadn't been there before. She realized, too late, that the painting wasn't waiting to be understood. It was waiting to be completed. Mira didn't wait. She grabbed the painting off the wall and placed it flat on the studio table. The figure inside now had full arms, a visible neck, and that eerie, raised hand clutching the brush, part of it halfway painted into existence. The canvas felt warm, pulsing like skin. Arav stood behind her, silent, pale. Neither of them could deny it anymore. The painting was finishing itself. Mira pulled out the letter again, reading every word slowly. Don't let her finish the portrait. Her grandmother hadn't been hiding the painting. She'd been guarding the world from whatever would happen if it was completed. But Mira had awakened it, fed it with attention, obsession, and maybe even belief. As the last light of day faded, the studio grew dim. Mira turned toward the shelves and found the old turpentine can, the one her grandmother used to use when destroying test canvases. She unscrewed it and poured it carefully over the edges of the painting. The liquid soaked into the canvas, but instead of bleeding the colors away, the figure inside smiled. They both stumbled back. The figure's face, still blurry, now had eyes. Human, wet, and blinking. And then it moved, the brush hand starting to trace something new in the corner. Another figure. Another shape. It was painting her, Mira. Mira screamed, grabbed the nearest knife from the drawer, and slashed the canvas straight down the middle. For a moment, everything went still. Then a gust of wind burst through the closed windows, knocking books and frames off the shelves. The lights flickered back on. The painting lay torn open, silent and lifeless. The figure was gone. Only blank canvas remained. They both stared at it, hearts pounding, chests heaving. It was over. But the twist came the next morning. As Mira went to delete the photos from her phone, she paused. In one of the glitched images, the blurry second figure Lotta had started painting wasn't her anymore. It was Ariv. And in the reflection behind him, the original painting, whole again. Smiling. Mira stared at the photo on her phone, her fingers trembling over the screen. The painting was back. Whole, untouched, and Ariv was now the one being drawn. She looked at him across the room. He was making tea like nothing had happened, like their entire world hadn't nearly unraveled. Should she tell him? Show him the photo? She hesitated. A strange calm had settled in the house, like the storm had passed but left behind a quiet warning. They decided to seal the torn painting in an old trunk and lock it in the attic. They didn't speak much about it after that night. Ariv went back to work, but he stayed in touch more often, checking on Mira almost daily. Something had changed in both of them. They weren't the same people who first stood in front of that painting. They had seen something they couldn't fully explain, something that blurred the line between life, memory, and the energy people leave behind. In the weeks that followed, Mira visited her grandmother's grave. She brought the old letter and burned it, whispering a thank you to the woman who had tried to protect her all along. The painting may have started as Lotta's creation, but it was her grandmother who had finished it, and paid the price to keep it silent. For decades, it had slept, buried under dust and time, until Mira's curiosity pulled it back. And yet, as strange as it sounds, Mira didn't regret finding it. The mystery, the fear, even the danger, it reminded her that art isn't just color and canvas. It's emotion, memory, history. Sometimes, it even becomes something more. Something alive. The final image stayed in her phone. She never deleted it. Not as a warning, but as a reminder. Some paintings should never be finished. Some stories never reopened. But when you do, make sure you're ready for what looks back.